Hey guys, Colorado Dave here, just putting out another video. We're here today to talk about Ferrum Forge Knife Works out of San Diego, California. It's a small group of guys, as I understand it, that do a lot of higher end custom work. And then in addition to that, they have a line of more affordable knives, like the one we're looking at here, that are being made from, most of them are being made from We, as I understand it, out of China, the manufacturer We, which, as you know, does the Civivi knives and Sencut. They now have that third line of knives that they're doing that are budget knives as well. But this is actually a direct collaboration with Ferrum Forge and We Knives. So this is not something that's done through Civivi or any of the other sub companies of We, more or less subsidiaries or whatever you want to call it of We. This is something done directly with Ferrum Forge out of San Diego, California, with We Knives. And they hit a home run on this one. I'll tell you that up front, guys. This is just a beautiful knife for the money. It's a little bit hard to get a hold of right now. This knife is $90, is where it seems to be at most of the majors, like your Blade HQ, your DLT Trading. Your majors are selling it for $90, but most of them don't have it in stock. It's a little difficult to get right now. It seems to kind of come and go. They get a few of them in and then they disappear pretty quick. And then another batch of them is done. As I understand it, this is, I believe it's only the second batch, maybe the third batch of these. They came out last year and they've kind of been hard to get a hold of. Then they just came around again about 3 months ago or so. That's when I picked this one up. But I have not used this, I'll be honest with you. I don't think it's gonna be a keeper for me just because I'm a bigger knife guy. But if this was my size, this is a beautiful knife. Beautiful knife. I'm just trying to streamline my collection a little bit, as I have a Grail knife I'm working on saving up for. And so I am getting rid of a few knives. This is one that might not make the cut. So it has nothing to do with the quality of the knife, and it shouldn't take anything away from this video. It's just personal preference. I'm a bigger knife guy. That's all there is to it. Nothing more, nothing less. But for a summer carry, this is a phenomenal carry. I just happen to have a couple other summer carries as well. So I'm trying, like I said, I'm trying to streamline my collection here a little bit. But I do love this knife in hand, and I do love the action on it. It's a flipper. It's got a very unique steel on it. It's got the Nitro-V steel on it, which we'll talk about here in a minute. It's a steel that's been around, but has not been used all that much on that many knives from a folding standpoint. As I understand it, it's more of a fixed blade steel than it is a folding steel. But it's a really nice steel for the money that they threw on this knife. As far as edge retention and testing and things like that, the only thing I can base it on is, I think Cedric and Ada on knife steels, he does a lot of those tests as far as cutting tests. And I believe he did a test on this one, and it came up right around where S30V would be as far as edge retention and doing that cut test that he does with the rope, etc. Sorry, I'm not giving you justice here. But anyway, based on that, I would basically say that this is going to be comparable to an S30 VN type of steel. And that's what you're going to get out of this. And so the actual knife blade is a pleasure as far as the quality of it, as far as the action. The action's phenomenal on the knife. There's definitely no issues there whatsoever. It's nice that you have the fuller. You can actually roll this knife out as well as flick it out with your thumb. Well, the key here is, if you notice, I grabbed the actual knife blade there, and that's why the blade wasn't coming out. As long as I get where I'm supposed to back here, this thing flicks right out. So it flicks that way with your thumb. You can even do a spidey flick on this one pretty easy. It's a very fidgety knife, no question about it. I love the Ferrum Forge logo that they put on the pivot. I think it's a really nice touch. You can see the Nitro-V steel stamp there on the other side of it. If you look at that pocket clip, it's got a nice deep carry pocket clip on it, so it's really, really easy in pocket, and it's a thin knife to begin with, and because the size of it's shorter, it's very, very comfortable carry in the pocket. Very comfortable. When we do some of these comparisons, we'll talk about some of the advantages to this knife. Another thing is, weight-wise, this knife is very light. It's not a very heavy knife. We will weigh it here as well. Let's actually look at it now. Let's see what the weight is on this thing. I actually haven't weighed it yet, but I did bring my scale out knowing I was gonna wanna weigh it. So let's see what we got here. We'll put this on here and see what comes up. So it looks like 2.56 ounces. So it's just over 2.5 ounces. It's a pretty light knife for a blade that's like 3¼ inches in length. So those are pretty good numbers as far as carryability, whatever, carryability? Yeah, that probably sounds better. Anyway, I'm mumbling here, guys. But again, this is from Ferrum Forge. This is the Stinger. It's done in the Nitro-V steel. The handle is the black G10. As I understand it, they did offer this knife also in a tan, in a green, both G10 handles, and then they had a carbon fiber handle, I believe, on the first run. I'm not sure if they had it on the second run. That was about 30 bucks more, 20 or 30 bucks more, something like that. I didn't care for the carbon fiber, to be honest with you. I'm not a huge carbon fiber. There's a few exceptions in my collection, but saying that, I thought the G10 in black looked great, especially up against the coated blade. To me, this is a great looking knife. So let's do some comparisons on this thing as well. Let's get rid of this also. But it is nice to have this nice little bag, nice little carry pouch. If it's something, I do like to have a knife that I just throw in the car. Or I throw in, you know, a backpack when I'm going up, you know, into the mountains or whatever. I like having these little bags around to throw my knives in because it does help protect them a little bit. This one would be great for that as well. So another nice touch that they did. Again, we're not talking about a $300 knife here, guys. We're talking about a $90 knife. And that $90 knife really does have a lot of little perks to it. And the quality of the action, etc., really, really is dynamite, guys. It's really, really nice on this knife. Even, you know, even look at your back spacer. When you shut this, you can see how the tip of the blade is 100% protected from the hand. Just a lot of detail you wouldn't think of on a knife like this. Look at the jimping. Look at the jimping up top here, on the top of the spine of the blade here. I mean, nicely done. It's not sharp, it's easy on the hand, but definitely gives you a little bit of grip. Attention to detail on a knife of this price range, I just think is awesome. So let's look at the size of this so we have a better feel for what we're really talking about here. Here's my Medford Smooth Criminal. I happen to have it in the blue. This is a button lock knife that I like a lot. This is another great, I would call this a summer carry. It's a really nice knife to throw in your pocket when you're wearing a pair of shorts or swimsuit or whatever. I don't know if I take that in the water, but you know, if you have one on and you're just wearing it dry or whatever. Anyway, size-wise, I think it's a good comparison up against the Medford. You can see the cutting edge on the Medford is actually, they say, a 3-inch knife. But yet I think you have more cutting edge on that versus the Nitro, which I believe is, I'm saying Nitro, excuse me, the Stinger here, which I believe is closer to a 3¼ inch blade. If you measure the length from right here all the way out, I believe it's roughly 3¼ inches. So this is actually saying it's a little bigger knife, but I think you're getting a little bit more cutting edge out of the Medford. And the reason for that is this forward finger choil, which again, I wouldn't take it away because I think it's dynamite. And it's really, really ergonomically comfortable on hand, guys. Whether you're holding it back here or whether you're holding it up here, either way, both are very comfortable grips for this knife. That's what it looks like up against that. Let's see what else we can pull out here. Let's pull out a couple others. Let's look at our Penguin QSP. This is one I got last year. This has the denim micarta scales on it, which are just dynamite. Guys, this is like a $30 or $35 knife. And what a great little gem. It's got a nice Warncliffe type of sheep's foot blade, for lack of better term. We'll call it a modified sheepfoot Warncliffe. I don't know. But I put my edge on it. The thing's sharp as can be. The action's great. It's just a great little knife. I can't say I carry it a ton, but it is one I pull out and I abuse a little bit just because it has a cheaper price point. I'm not going to lie. But the action's great. Just a great little knife. But size-wise, you can see. Comparatively, the blade is very, very similar as far as cutting edge to the QSP Penguin. I would put those pretty much in the same category, very similar. Another one that I would put up against it, size-wise, as far as actual cutting blade, is going to be this CJRB. This is the Rhea, which is another fun knife. It came out, I think, around the same time this came out, early last year, I believe. Don't hold me to that, guys. I'm still new at this. I'm basing all this off videos I've watched over the last year, probably, or 2 years, and watching this stuff come out and grab a few things that I liked that I bought that I want to share with you guys. This has become a really nice little gentleman's knife. I decided to make this a keeper because it was inexpensive, so I put my edge on it. It came from the factory a little bit. The edge wasn't that great, to be honest, as far as cutting. Once I put my edge on it with my KME, this thing is really slicey. And the action on this, again, it's super smooth. I mean, for a little $30 or $40 knife, this thing's got some really, really nice action. It's very clean looking in the jade, which I liked a lot. That's the reason I got it. But again, size-wise, matching it up to the Stinger here, another great little knife. This is a lot more blade. This is gonna last you a lot longer. This is a fun little gentleman's knife that I'll have a good time with, but I'll never use it hard. This can probably take a little bit harder use, although it's still very, very thin behind the edge, and as far as just the actual stock of the steel towards the tip is definitely, it does get quite thin. So it's not something that you would want to be prying anything off with the tip, but I would still say this is going to be tougher than this in that world. But similar knives in the sense that they're both knives you could pull out of your pocket in an office environment and not feel like you're pulling a machete out. Let's see what it looks like up against the 940. Since a lot of you are familiar with that knife, this is probably a good comparison since a lot of you are familiar with the sizing of this knife. You can see it's a little bit bigger. But again, for me, I'm a bigger knife guy. The 940 to me is not a super big knife, but it's a good size knife. This runs just a touch smaller than that. This is going to be the perfect size for probably 70% of the people out there, I'm guessing. As this can be a little bit big for some people as well. It's another knife I really, really like, though. This is my first 940 I've ever owned, and I got it when they came out with them. This is the Blade HQ exclusives on this, and it's got the M4, which is what interested me. Just the look of it, I thought it was a pretty knife, and then the M4 I like a lot. And I have it on my Super Freak, and I knew Benchmade did a good job with it, so that was another reason why I got this knife. This one's on the fence. So far, it's been a safe queen. I did put my edge on it, but I haven't decided if I'm keeping this one long-term or not. Just because I'm thinning my collection out a little bit to get a grail knife that I'm working on. And this one, I think I'm keeping, but I'm right on the fence with it. We'll see long-term what happens. Just to put another Ferrum Forge up against it, this is another WE collaboration. This is called the Buck. It's got a very unique blade shape. This is a titanium frame lock versus the liner lock that you have here on the Stinger. But both Ferrum Forge designs. So you can see Ferrum Forge will go out there a little bit and do some unique things. But again, some beautiful things. Most everything I've seen of theirs I really like. This is another one, again, just beautiful action, guys. Beautiful, look at that. But just size comparison wise, this is a Mass Drop Ferrum Forge collaboration. So this was done by Mass Drop, Ferrum Forge, and then WE Knives is the one that actually manufactured them, but Mass Drop basically marketed and distributed them, and then Ferrum Forge was the one who designed them. Ferrum Forge has done quite a bit with Mass Drop, which actually Mass Drop has changed their name to just Drop. If you want to ever look them up online, they do have a handful of knives at any given time. They, like I said, they do a lot with Ferrum Forge as one of the companies they work with quite a bit, but they do other, they work with other knife designers as well, and they come out with a handful of knives every year that that they basically do in bulk buying and bulk runs, and WE Knives produces a lot of those, but they can be a real good value, so they might be worth checking out at some time if you have some time to look them up, but just FYI. That's how I got this knife, is through Mass Drop. What else do I got up here? Let's show some Spydercos. I want to show my Kapara just because I haven't showed it in a while. It's a little dirty, but that's because I actually used this knife. This is a knife that definitely gets used in my rotation quite a bit. You can see the Kapara is a much bigger knife than the Stinger. The Stinger, again, blade-wise, it's going to have that same thinness that you're going to get from the Kapara, because the Kapara is more of a thin, slicier knife in the Spyderco line, as far as I'm concerned. That makes this one slicey enough to like cut apples up and do different things like that, because you could do some kitchen things with this knife as well, even though it's a smaller knife, just because of the sliciness of it. In that way, I would compare it to this knife. Outside of that, they're very different knives. Both great knives, but just very different. Let's see how it looks up against the Para 3. All right, let's look at the Para 3. They're very similar in size. You can see here that these are not very different in size. As far as cutting edge, it looks like you might get a little bit more cutting edge out of the Stinger. But again, very, very comparable. I think handle size, again, very comparable. One thing you will notice is, let's talk about the width of this knife for a minute, because from what I'm seeing here, and the Para 3 isn't super thick. I wouldn't say it's thin, but it's not super thick. But if you can see that, Stinger's just that much thinner. It's a very thin, light knife. So like I said, it's a great, great summer knife for throwing in a pair of shorts or whatever. That's what the Para 3 looked like up against it. Let's do our Para 2. All right, this is the first knife that got me into this crazy world of deciding I was going to spend over $100 on a pocket knife. And my gosh, has it gone crazy since. But this is up against the Stinger, the Para 2 most of you are familiar with. Mine's a little beat up here, but you can see the size difference. It's definitely a smaller knife. But again, look at that cutting edge. It's not that dramatically different if you took the choil away. Again, the choil's eating up, part of your cutting edge on this blade, but I don't think it's in a bad way. I think it's in a good way, like a Spyderco. I think they did it right. I think the design and ergonomically, it just feels it feels right. And that jimping up there, you're not going anywhere with this knife. But what I like about this knife is I can hold it both ways comfortably. I can hold it back here, or I can hold it up top. And both ways is very, very comfortable. I can't talk firsthand on cutting with this knife and doing much with it because I've kind of babied it. Knowing that I might not hold on to it long term, I just wanted to at least get a couple videos out on it, or at least one video, sharing my thoughts with you guys. But I don't know if this is going to stay with me long term. And it's just because I'm a bigger knife guy. I mean, that's the main reason. And I am saving up for one of my grill knives, which I'll share with you guys later. But anyway, that's what it looks like up against the Para 2. So hopefully that's enough comparison-wise. Guys, I don't know what else to say about this knife. Let's talk about the steel here a little bit. I think I briefly touched on it. They're saying, the most comparable steel would probably be S30VN, excuse me. Would probably be comparable as far as cutting tests and edge retention, etc. It's a fun steel because they don't use it a lot. You don't see it on pocket knives a lot, the Nitro-V. You can see this is coated, but I think tastefully done, especially up against the black. As far as the handle of the knife, we talked about it being G10 black. You can see on the pivot screw how they got their logo there, which is beautiful. As far as these other two screws that have to be removed, you're looking at, I believe those are T6s. I'm almost positive those are T6s. I have not taken this knife apart. This is a flipper knife. You can see the fuller there. This knife, as I showed you earlier, you can open it up every which way and sideways. Lots of options on how you want to open it. Just a great little EDC summer knife. For me, it would be a summer knife because in the winter I like bigger, heavier knives. But for a summer knife, awesome knife. The other knife I don't have out right now, if I had it in front of me, I would definitely put up against it. That is another summer knife for me in my world, which is probably one of my biggest carries for the summer, is my Sage 5 Lightweight. This reminds me of that knife a little bit, even though it's a very different shape. Just the fact of it being a lighter knife, good quality knife, very slicey. I would put it in that same category. Again, a nice summer knife to carry. My number one carry last year through the summer would have been this knife, which is the Para 3. This happens to be the one in Maximate. I actually have another one that's in the S110V. It's a little chippy. There's a whole story behind that, but I still love that knife, and I don't think I'll ever get rid of that one either. But this one was my number one carry probably last year, and so this was my summer carry as well, because this is still small enough that I could call this a summer carry. But as far as putting it in the pocket with a pair of shorts, this knife's going to carry 100 times better, and it'll do everything. I don't know why I'm struggling with that today. This will do everything that Para 3 does. Para 3 is going to be a little bit stronger because the blade's a little bit thicker. The Para 3 won't be quite as slicey. But again, you got a little bit boxier handle. There's similarities and differences. This might be a good one actually for a battle, just to see them side by side. But again, they serve a very similar purpose to me. And I would say this can do everything this can do just as well. So if you like the look of this knife and you like the thought of a lighter knife, this may be the knife for you, you know. The Ferrum Forge guys, I think they have awesome design as far as their ergos, etc., and just the actual physical look of the designs. I think they're as good as anybody out there. They do a great job. We's been putting out just some great product at a very reasonable price. I don't know if I have a lot more to say about this outside. Okay, we didn't talk about the pocket clip that much. We mentioned it. I don't think we need to say a lot about it. I think it's just a good deep carry clip. You can tell that this knife is not going to take up a lot of real estate in your pocket. This is a fairly small knife. The only issue you're going to run into a little bit is that flipper. You will feel it in your pocket lightly. But again, as you see the knife turns down here by the flipper, you're really only exposing that top little edge of it. That's going to be vulnerable to your hand when you're putting your hand in your pocket. But you'll notice it slightly. But this is still a very, very good carry, you know, as far as not taking up a lot of real estate in your pocket and being comfortable. And obviously it's light as well. So that's about all I have to say on this one, guys. I think it's a great one. If you can get your hands on one, go for it. They're a little bit tough to get, like I said, but they do run in spurts. They'll probably be coming out with another run of these soon, and they'll be around for a little while, but they do seem to go away fairly quickly. So if you find one, grab it, because they don't seem to last very long. But definitely a good knife, a very good knife, especially at the $90 price point. Highly recommend it. Thanks, guys, for your time. Talk to you later.